It's 6 o'clock. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. First item will be roll call.
Brown,
Here.
Cox,
Here.
Britt, Gerke,
Here.
Davis,
Here.
Nail.
Here. Second item, I take the motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Do we have a second? Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Everyone's had a chance to look over the previous meeting's minutes. No additions or corrections of standard approved. Do we have any public comment? Move on to officers.
I got some public comment. I'll let him get by before I start here. Shouldn't have been an amateur. All right, everybody hear me okay? I don't know if that's loud enough to come through. I'm pretty close to the owl here, so I'll just try and speak loudly. You can see a couple extra graphs on my report this month, just kind of playing around with some visual aids for you guys to get an idea of call volumes by types. As I've said before, about a third of our calls end up being non-transport and or assistance calls. A lot of those are from third-party callers, such as somebody drives by, sees a car wreck, they'll dispatch an ambulance. We get their care needed. Sometimes we're brought to the scene to evaluate a patient for police department or fire or something like that. Those are non-billable, non-transport calls. That covers fully about a third of our call volume, and that's just consistent across the industry. Command vehicles, 5% non-transport. That's when they actually fill out a report on a person. However, they do go on. The rest of them are all actually ground transport calls. Operational changes. Bothwell with our ER transfer of care procedural changes. What that means is, I don't know if everybody's read the latest in Excel, but we're going to a public health advisory at midnight tonight for the Pettis County Health Center. With the declining number of patients, of COVID positive patients, and we were transferring the actual care from paramedic or EMT to nurse in the breezeway and emergency room at Bothwell, and this entailed plastic sheeting and certain types of PPE, whatever was needed, depending on the patient, if they were a potential COVID patient. We were doing that for all patients. We've scaled that back to where we're only doing it for potential COVID or known COVID patients now, which is not very many of ours, thankfully. So that helps streamline things a lot better. I won't say we're back to normal, but it definitely is. It helps the ER staff. It helps our patients. So we started doing that about a week ago, and that's really all that is. That's just to let you guys know that operational change. Other than that, we haven't had any SOGs. And no new SOGs or clinical protocol changes. No major equipment issues. We have received the new Medic 7, the Unit 7. It is sitting right there. So after the meeting, if you jump on, go check it out and kind of look around, poke around. It's not stocked yet. It's in the process of getting some communication equipment put in. So there are some wires hanging loose in there. But I'd like you guys to see what a new one looks like before we get underway. So it's a good looking truck there for y'all to inspect that for me. Let's see. And moving on to page 2, I started doing the unit mileage a little bit differently just because I thought this was kind of visually easier to see, easier to make sense. You can see our high mileage trucks down there at the bottom. Those are not supposed to fade from one color to another, but essentially I start marking them yellow after 150,000 miles, and when they go over 200, I start marking them red. So it's kind of a triage of our units. You can see where we're at. Obviously, 7's only got a few miles on it from the dealer. Below that, you've got a maintenance report. We've fiddled around with this, but what you can essentially see down there at the bottom is you can see our average cost per mile. When it comes to fuel, you can see our fuel cost per mile, or excuse me, our maintenance cost per mile. So it might be nothing on one truck 1 month if we haven't done anything. It might be a minimal amount if it's just an oil change, or it might be as much as, like I said, for a major issue like Unit 11, we had an exhaust manifold bolt break, and they had to go in and retrieve the bolt and put a new one in. That was a successful operation, thankfully. You can see that drives up the maintenance cost per mile. Right now, this is on a monthly thing. I'm going to try and get this spread out over a little longer time, so it makes a little more sense. It doesn't just peak whenever something goes wrong with one particular truck. So this is going to be more of a trend type chart as we move forward, but I'll leave that information in there if you gentlemen are interested in it. If not, just let me know. No accidents or work comp issues right now. Building and grounds are all looking good. We are doing some touch-up painting as we move along. In the East Bay at headquarters, we put that cage up. Cage, I call it a cage, fence, whatever. It's the chain link fence out the bay that we keep some secure supplies in. We're planning on extending that out a little bit, moving a bunch of the tools in there so we can keep a little better track of them and keep everything nice and neat. We've been doing one of our guys has been doing a lot more radio work out there in the East Bay, so it'll give him a little workplace to do. I put it in here because it's just a little bit north of what my purchasing amount is. It's just a little bit north of $1,000 by about $100. So we're going to planning on doing all the labor and everything ourselves. So it's just going to be strictly materials that we have to pay for. So I want to run that by the board just so it didn't surpass that number. Give me one moment, I'll tell you exactly what that number is. And I don't know if that's going to require a vote or anything, but I did want to bring you the information. Total on that was $927.04, and there was going to be a little bit more because we have to actually fab the posts to go into the ground where they mount it. So it's going to be, like I said, just pushing that $1,000 just for transparency. No issues as far as utilities. Out here, we are still waiting on some internet issues when it comes to our phone lines. The reporting, all our basic internet services are working. If I'm not getting this wrong, our VoIP, voice over phone, some of that, some issues. And apparently from what Mr. Davis told me, we're not having computer chat problems right now. So pretty broad. Pretty widespread issues with internet. Nothing that's affecting any operations. So our radios are working fine. We do have in those mechanical rooms, which before I shut the door, you guys might have heard all the buzz coming out of there. We do have to replace those units occasionally. They're a portable air conditioner unit. They bring any kind of server room generates a whole lot of heat. So to keep that equipment running smoothly for as long as possible, we want to keep it cold and dry in there, and they just wear out. The one at Station 1 is it's pretty much on its last leg. So I did want to bring that to the board's attention at some point. We're probably going to have to look at replacing it pretty soon. And that also, I think the last time we purchased one was around 800. Ryan's got some plans to possibly rework that system and maybe get a little more life out of it. So I'll be bringing that information to the board pretty soon. No software virus issues. We are having some planning meetings to develop protocols for a service-wide risk analysis. And what risk analysis entails is essentially just what it sounds like. It looks for any kind of holes we have in our reporting system, any kind of security breaches. Mr. Newsom has been absolutely phenomenal in this department. However, we have never had a set plan and procedure for it. So what we're going to be doing real soon, probably in the next couple of weeks, is getting executive staff and leadership together to basically formulate an annual plan for risk analysis, how it works out, and we'll of course inform the board. I did want to bring to the attention to the board next week. I do not have it in my report, but be aware that it is EMS week nationwide. This is through the National Association of EMS. It's essentially just a recognition of emergency services across the board, and that entails emergency rooms, hospitals, flight services, ground services, basically anybody in emergency medical services. It's not just us. So traditionally, what we've done in the past is we'll grill some burgers, knock off probably. Last year it was kind of a wash because of COVID. We really didn't get to anything. I think we had cooked some barbecue at the station, but that was not the end of it. I don't know, can't speak for Bothwell having any activities. I've heard officially what's going on over there. I know our local flight crews are doing some barbecuing. So we'll just kind of get together, and everybody in EMS likes to eat. So we generally get together and hang out and snack a little bit. But it is EMS week next week. So if you want to stop by and if you want to bring any goodies, they always like goodies, but it's, we try and recognize them for their services for the year. This year is focusing on community service, which that's the name of the game. That's what we always do. So there you go. Bothwell is doing some trauma case simulation. This is in keeping with their efforts to get their trauma center certification. So they're doing a lot of training as well as some actual simulation of major trauma patients being brought in. We'll be participating along with Life Flight Eagle, or excuse me, I'm sorry, MU3, coming over and kind of working through simulations with them as we do some more training and just kind of prepare for how things are going to work when they do get the trauma center certification. So that'll be nice. No big media stories other than I did mention to the board one recognition award that will be coming out next board meeting, as well as our EMT recently got their paramedic certification that we'll be talking about next week. So we'll be 2 people I'll talk about in our report next time. One of them will be getting some recognition. We'll hear about the news. I don't want to steal anybody's thunder, so I'm not going to make that tonight. Special projects. As you can see, we're setting at the tables we always set at, but our new tables have thankfully arrived, and they're very nice and very sturdy. So the next meeting we have over at the classroom, gentlemen, we'll see what the district bought, and we're very pleased with it. It should last a long time. They're definitely a lot more sturdier than these things, so I think we'll get quite a few more years out of it. They're up and rolling. Let's see. We have moved some of the items out here, as I was showing you guys some of our backup PPE from last year. We're stored up in the mezzanine, so we're good on that. We're not reusing any masks there for a while through the pandemic. There was a whole procedure drawn out for reusing N95 masks, which have a worldwide shortage on those things. I'm happy to report we are caught. We're good. We're not having to reuse any of that stuff. And also we have other means from pappers to the filtered masks. So I don't anticipate us falling behind on anything unless there's medication or some other shortage we don't know about yet. There's always something, hurricane, whatnot, but we're good right now. Very good. Pettis County Joint Communications, we'll have an update next meeting. We have a meeting coming this Friday with them, so I'll have hopefully have a little bit more information to share with you, John, at the second meeting this month. We have had some our mandatory trainings this month. Those are quarterly. Our full-time staff has to make 75% of those. Our part-time staff has to make 50% of those. So full-time staff gets one off a year. They can certainly come if they want to, but they definitely have to be at 75% of them. Generally, those last anywhere from 4, if it's a big class, sometimes it's even 8 hours. So they're there all day. It is mandatory. A lot of times we go over some certification classes and critical airway training, I believe, is what we did this time, involving advanced airways procedures for both EMTs and airmen. VIII, that's our scheduling software. They're doing some online training. It's been going great. Everything's working fine with it so far. No issues with that. Gov Deals, I don't know if, Katie, would you like to update the board on that? Okay, good deal. I don't know why I keep throwing them out. Happy report, again, no COVID-related illnesses or absences. It's been months since we've had anybody sick out of PCAD for that. So I'm gonna try and keep it that way. We will be issuing a memo tomorrow as far as we'll still be wearing masks around patients. We'll still be taking full PPE precautions around any COVID positive or suspected COVID positive patients. But we probably will scale back on some of our mask usage if we're in the trucks and no patients are around. Our decontamination procedures will go back to normal unless, again, it is a COVID positive or suspected COVID patient. So we'll be continuing with mask usages. We'll be wearing them in any businesses or clinics, hospitals that require their use. We'll respect the rules that they have and around the public, of course, and follow all those recommendations from the health center as well as CDC. Nothing to report, no family leave right now. The handbook revisions were given to local 5229. I have not heard back if they signed off on them. I don't anticipate any issues there. And I think I've already talked about that next thing. We've had no resignations, terminations, or other changes. We did interview. We are in the midst of interviewing for some PRN and EMT positions. We're right in the middle of that, so I have nothing to report for it this time, but we'll notify next week where we're going on that direction. And those are all for just part-time positions, no full-time, no FTEs. Those are all just filling in stuff that people that we brought over full-time. Over the past few months, we've kind of depleted our stock of part-timers, and some of them are getting a little hefty on the hours, so it's PRN staff. Other than that, I've got a call volume for April. I'm looking at historically speaking from last year, that is up from last year quite a bit. March we were down, April we were up, but this year we're up even more. We're at 666. Sorry about that number. Transfers, you can see the difference between transfers and 911 there. Only 2 flights last month, bringing us to a total right now of total transports of 1671 for the year. 2,500 calls, just north of 2,500 calls for the total. And Windsor, we're pretty much on par. A little bit short this month, a little slow down there, a little slower than last year, but nothing terribly unusual. 77 total, 55 out of those were transports, 1 flight, and you can see down there we are doing some standby events. We had 3 in Pettis County, 1 down in Windsor. So I anticipate that number to creep up backward. Actually, now that people are kind of getting out and doing things and getting outside and looking at all things again. So happy to see those. Any questions on call volume?
And one more time for me.
Yep.
I'm a little slow. Status level 0 events.
Status level 0. That's anytime all of our units are all out at once, those are called status level 0. Now, we have mutual aid agreements with everyone, including Windsor Ambulance District. What we typically do, what we've always done is if all of those Sedalia trucks are out, a Windsor truck will float this direction. They don't typically come all the way up. They'll usually come down to Green Ridge, and vice versa. If all the Windsor trucks are out, we'll go down there. So Windsor, having only 2 trucks, is going to have more status level 0 events than us. But with that mutual aid between our 2 services, between the Windsor station and ours, we don't have to call Johnson County. We don't have to call Warsaw. We don't have to call anybody else. We kind of take care of our own operations. So status level 0s, if we weren't having any of them, it would be an indicator that we're overstaffed. So if we're having a whole bunch of them, it would be just the opposite.
So this is the counts, not necessarily the time, but the counts.
Yes.
So there were 7.
Yep.
And you know what's the average?
Average time is generally just minutes. They report them no matter what. It's anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes tops. Sometimes even less than that. We don't hardly ever go any long period of time. Generally, like I said, there's no rhyme or reason to it. It can happen at 3 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and it's just when everything comes in all at once. I think we probably had a couple board meetings in the past where it seems like the tones are going off all the time, and they do. They all come at once. It's feast or famine. But now the harbinger of bad stuff is when you start having to farm things out to different counties. you start not only losing those calls, but the residents have to wait an extremely long time to get an ambulance. We haven't had any issues like that. So no big waits on ambulance. This is strictly staffing. So no delayed calls, no delayed responses because of that. I believe.
And I just have two more questions. So,
Sure.
what percent of your staff's vaccinated?
About 30.
About 30.
About 30. Yeah. I encourage them to increase that number. But that's pretty much average for Pettis County. I heard actually for county numbers closer to a quarter. So, yeah.
And do you have different rules, something like anything to incentivize them to do a vaccine?
No. Other than just information, the IFF puts out their own recommendations to the union. And I, of course, forward those recommendations along with staff so they can see it. But there's a handful, I'll say, that are waiting. There's a handful of those, just kind of like everywhere else. Right? Yeah.
I was just curious, as far as what we do, if you have a room full of vaccinated people, have your mask on.
Right.
And then are you getting applications? That's my last question.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Very rare.
Yeah. We've never had, I won't say never, but we've seldom had issues getting people that want to work. That's one of the sources of pride I have in this organization is people want to work here. And we know when it comes from Nebraska. So, yeah, pretty dedicated guy. But no, we don't really have any shortages. Every once in a while it gets a little thin. The paramedic schools in the state are few and far between nowadays because they had to go full accreditation. They had to have full accreditation, whereas usually anybody had paramedic class. So it is pretty hard to find those right now. EMTs, we try and have our classes based on demand rather than just doing classes all the time and flooding the market. We do it based on demand. And I failed to mention a lot of our EMTs that are applying for these PR positions are local people, and several of them are from our last EMT class. So yeah, we're growing our own in that regard. That also helps make that orientation a lot quicker. So, yeah. You're welcome.
Are there any other questions? Yeah.
On the EMS week, next week,
Yes.
does the Democrat run a special section on that?
They usually report on it. I don't know that they run a special section per se, but there's general.
I have no idea what she said.
No, not at all. Sorry.
No, I just wondered if they had opportunity to have a positive story written.
Yeah, it's, EMS week, we when EMTs, paramedics are working, they eat a lot off of napkins and they eat a lot when they're running down the hall. So getting them together to do any sort of activities, especially since a lot of the staff doesn't live around the area, is like herding cats. It really is. And that's through no fault of their own. So like I said, generally what we do is we figure out some way to have finger foods and just, meet each other and pat everybody on the back and we all work as a team as emergency services in this area. So generally police and fire, of course, involved. Fire is part of our EMS system, of course, in Sedalia. They do the BLS first response for us. And everybody comes over and has a hot dog and a sandwich and generally gets about halfway through and then they work. So that's about how they all end up.
It seems like the community could use some. Like a train ride or something. civic groups doing a barbecue. I know that people will be on duty and stuff, but
Like I said, there's one club in town that does this. That's their permit in the year. That is going on right now. It said I don't want to make that announcement. But that kind of sounds.
that's because of the week.
Yeah. It was originally called the Respect for Law Backers. It kind of fanned out. So that's included in the sense. That's a new day.
For the future protocol for risk analysis. I've been living security risk stuff for the last 6 months, so can I do that?
Okay. Yep.
I've been neck deep in that for 6 months now.
Fun stuff, but like I said, Ryan's been doing, he runs tests all the time. Been doing, after sitting through the classes, and I'm not an IT guy, but in our management classes, it's one of the things that definitely all caps, do your risk management. I just want to develop an actual process. So yeah, we're going to reach out to you. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? No, move on to CFO.
Report starts on page 11 with the sales tax receipts for this month. So we're up about 30% up over 2020, same time period. And of course, April of last year, that's when everything was pretty well shut down. So it's a huge drop, but I think that's due to the pandemic from last year being down. Over the year, we're about 148,000 on sales tax revenue and almost 13%. Page 12 is our bank balances as of the 5th and the 22nd of April. See, we're down there, but we purchased unit 7 in that time period, so that's a big chunk of that. Year over year, we were up 852,000 from May 5th, 2020. Page 13 is our cash reserve analysis. Pretty stable there, just a little less than 5 days less in our cash reserves currently. Pages 14 through 16 on the check register. Anybody have any questions on any of those transactions? That takes us to page 17, which is our current bills. And then 18 through 20 are the details. If you have any questions on any of those bills. And then attached is also the credit card statement for last month. There's some questions on any of those charges.
Yeah, the 890 at the bottom, union dues, what do you mean?
Union dues. So we collect union dues out of employees' paychecks that have chosen for us to do that, and then we pay it over to the union. So we're just a conduit basically to collect the dues and pay them over.
Is that a pretty normal way of doing it?
Yep. Yep.
I would like to ask,
Sure.
how do we select the local vendors? Like, I noticed we have all Menards, nothing from Lowe's, or, I mean, is it because we have a charge card set up with them, or?
That's part of it, but Menards also gives us a rebate.
Yeah, you gotta spend it in their store though.
Well, we do, we do spend it in their stores, so.
So that's why we do it, and more than likely we'll continue just doing.
Yeah, I
business
mean, we
with them.
have purchased things from Lowe's, and we did used to have an account with Lowe's as well. The way their credit card statement would come in, and when they wanted it paid by, cost finance charges, so we did away with that. So you'll still see charges on our regular credit cards.
I always go to my friendly hardware store, Westlake's first, but
Yeah, and you'll see charges for less, what, at Westlake's as well.
I just wondered if we had whoever buys it just decides where to go. Basically.
Generally, I mean, they do a good job of checking prices.
Okay.
So they'll either look on the website or call and see where things are before they go get them. Any other questions on the bill? Well, that is the end of that.
Are there any other questions on the CFO report? If not, I'll take the motion to pay the outstanding bill.
So move.
Do it second. Sorry. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. So, medical director's notes. Let's move on to unfinished business, disposition, trade in or surplus rates.
Okay. The page 24 from Public Safety Solutions LLC. That is a trade-in of radios we're no longer using that have been upgraded, getting $1,166.67 each for them. They weren't going to do us any good sitting around, and that's a really good price on trade-in. It's going to save us about 10 grand later on when we do need radios. Normally, these radios are around $5,100 a piece. We're getting a trade-in for those 6 radios, rated 2 of the new Motorola APXs for $3,500. So even Steven might have cost any money and get rid of our surplus radios through this one.
Are there any questions about that?
But it is district property, so.
No, we move on. Windsor Mowing.
Does there need to be a vote on that since we're getting rid of the property? I'm not worried with this, sorry.
Disposal of your, you're talking about disposal of your radios?
Yes.
It's just a trade.
Okay, all right, I just wanted to. I don't have anything in moving, I'm still waiting. I'm moving on that.
Table the Windsor Mowing to the next meeting. They went to replace this. Proposal they want to table.
I don't know if Mr. Fritz was able to join us. He's been the one that's been doing this. All I can tell you is this is the most recent bid. Should be one dated 5/10 of 21 for a quote total of $89.83. This is all the windows on the south side of our bay. Is he on there?
No.
No. My recommendation with David is I've got some other issues I'd like to look at too, maybe some other options.
Okay, so we'll table this till the next meeting when we get here. We can research your options again. Gov Deals, the refrigerator.
So basically, after our last meeting, we approved the $1,200 for the fridge. We sent that back out to our highest bidder and they did not accept it after a few days. So we re-auctioned it. It closed at 5 p.m. today and there were no bids. I don't know if y'all want to re-auction it again, maybe the third price or something about that. With this would be the third. Well, this last one we had was the third time.
So maybe local options.
We could advertise locally. I did link the ad on our Facebook page. I don't know how much traffic that particular ad got. Our page does okay with traffic, but it probably doesn't go on traffic for people who want to break the trigger. So might consider local listing it through the Democrat or certainly list again on Gov Deals.
Are we able to donate that to any school or church or
Our procedure basically says we have to dispose of it in a business-like manner. So,
It's 5 years old. I don't know. Appreciation might be on that, if it's appreciated. I don't.
Tempted to take bids in the word.
I'm sorry.
We attempted to take bids in the word, so we
I'm sure
fulfill that obligation.
is church group or
That's what I was thinking. I was thinking big church case or something like that.
I thought it's all paper county. Nothing. Oh, I think I asked this one time before.
we have to try and dispose of it in a business-like
And
manner.
they'll make it smart business something. No. No.
It's pretty broad. And like you said, we have put it up for auction 3 times.
So we fulfill that obligation, so.
What was the highest offer?
The first time it was set on, it was $650. The second time it was auctioned, it was the $1,200, which we had approved at the last meeting. But when we sent it back to them, they didn't come back.
1,500 was the reserve. Yeah, so
And I know people are looking at it, I checked the site, right before 5 o'clock, there were at least 282 people that had visited that specific page. So people are looking at it and it's not.
You said the reserve was out, said how much last time?
This last one was 1,200.
So each time we put a new reserve on
You can, or you can even list it without a reserve. It would just be whatever the highest bid gets up to, so. You can set a reserve on it, and you can also put what you want the starting bid to be, and it goes up to $25 increments. So if you wanted to start the bid at your reserve price, and you know your first bid, you're gonna have somebody that you can sell it to. But if you're wanting to list it lower, and just not put a reserve on it, it'll just go to whoever. But it doesn't tell the people who are buying it what the reserve price is, so that could be partially why they're not going to bid on it. They don't know that the reserve, how high it goes, so.
It does tell them that the reserve not met. Though.
Yeah,
So what did we have the starting bid prices at? 500 or something?
yeah, I think the first time we listed it, we set it at 500. See if they go up from there. Reauction, we got to 650. And then when we set it on the second time, we set it on 1,200. Okay.
Well, why wouldn't we just maybe start it out at 500 and not have it?
That's what I was thinking too. Since we did so well on that ambulance.
It's just sitting right there.
No bids at all this last time.
and that covers a great big area. I hate to see we go out of there. There's organizations in Pettis County.
How do we
Well, I don't
contact?
know. You know, first thing comes to mind is the building over there on north of Main Street.
Versus stuff. Versus stuff.
Yeah, yes, that's it. I mean, I didn't get to see it. Pettis County people pay for that. I hate to see it go somewhere else. When it could be. And maybe it's not, I don't know, it's just my thought. And doing a business like manner, I don't see what donating. Be that. You know. But I'm maybe wrong. That's just my thoughts.
How about if we just check around before the next meeting? And see if like the stock needs refrigerator.
Yeah.
See if Sacred Heart needs one. Senior Center, I suppose they're gonna be buying all new stuff out there.
Organizations, you know, that place down on Quincy there, gives out food, I don't know, the name of it, but they give out food. It's between Ohio. Seven, 67. Things whatever really good about money, get out of that time. Surely we'll get it next time. More so. Not sure.
So do you want to reach out to some of those before next meeting?
For, as a donation.
Yeah, I'll do that. Sure, if someone has a need. we can approve it. It was so desired. Yeah. And no new business. Take a motion to go into closed session pursuant to RSMo 610.021 section 2.
So moved.
Second. Second. All in favor, no vote.
Brown,
Yes.
Cox,
Yes.
Briggs, Turkey,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Nail.
Yep.